is Thursday, which means it is time to make our NFL weekly picks for week 14. If you're new here, this is the board. I'll be making all the picks for all Sunday's action, Thursday's action, and Monday's action. Almost forgot about the 3 amazing days of football that we get. So I'll make the picks. You criticize the picks in the comments. Let me know who you think's going to win. And let's begin. So this is the board, of course, and we begin as always with Thursday Night Football, which comes up in a few hours. So you may or may not see this video in time for that game, but if you don't, that's fine. The first game on the docket is, of course, the Patriots and the Rams for Thursday Night Football, a Super Bowl rematch. And despite how depleted the Patriots defense is with opt-outs and injuries and just how anemic the offense has looked at times, I know they put up 45 last week against the Chargers, but that was a lot of, in part because of how good the special teams was against the Chargers, against a team with a head coach that's probably going to end up getting fired at the end of the season because his game management skills just aren't what they used to be. So the Rams are an interesting team because there's definitely a formula out there to beat Jared Goff week in and week out. And the Patriots were one of the teams that sort of, flagshipped the original design to shut down this Rams offense a number of years ago after the Super Bowl, because everybody saw what happened in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. They all copied it because it's a copycat league, and then the Rams had a pretty bad year. But the Rams have resurged. What I think doesn't work for them is how good their pass defense is. The Patriots aren't going to be passing the ball a whole bunch. They're going to do it a little bit to set up the run, but mostly they're going to get this done on the ground. So I'm going to go with the fact that, the Patriots offense in a way sort of takes Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald as a pass rusher out of the game to a degree and give the win to New England. Also because, I believe in Bill Belichick making Jared Goff's life miserable no matter what he has at his disposal, because Jared Goff is one of those quarterbacks who you can definitely get off rhythm and disrupt an offense. So I'll go with the Patriots for Thursday night. Next, we have the Texans and the Bears. Despite how good Deshaun Watson is in this league, and despite how good he is without DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, the Texans' defense is not very good. The Bears actually tried to show up in their last game, but they're still horrible. It's still a horrible team. The Texans should probably win this game. But I'm going to go with some chaotic energy for this week, and I'm going to go and pick the Bears, which I haven't done in a long time. I don't remember the last time I even picked the Bears to win a football game. As I've said since the beginning of the season, this is a fraudulent team. The fact that they started with a winning record at 5-1 was just a stroke of luck. They've lost everything since, but streaks end at some point. So I'm going to call on the Bears' losing streak to end this week, if you will, and beat one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Deshaun Watson. Next, we have the Cowboys and the Bengals. This one's pretty easy. The Bengals are basically playing for a top 3 overall pick. The Cowboys are a much better team on paper and on the field. This offense should be able to thrive against the Bengals defense that is very bad. And, there's not much left that the Bengals can do on offense without having Joe Burrow, because, the quarterbacks that they have left are not very good. So Brandon Allen, whether it's Brandon Allen, Ryan Finley, it doesn't matter. I think that the Cowboys are good enough to beat the Bengals, who are bad enough. Next, we have the Chiefs and the Dolphins, and last week I picked Washington to upset the Steelers, and it happened. Streaks always come to an end. There's going to be a time where teams lose. All good teams lose games. That's why they go 12-4, they go 13-3. 16-0 is very hard to do. 15-1 is very hard to do. 14-2 is very hard to do. It's very difficult to win that number of games in an NFL season. It's hard. That's why it only happens so often. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins here, on the fact that the Dolphins defense is playing really good in the past few months. And it's going to depend on whether or not they get good Tua Tagovailoa for this game and not bad Tua Tagovailoa for this game. Not that he's played bad, but he's had some games where there's been some obvious rookie growing pains. Can they keep up and shut down a Chiefs offense that seems to score at will? That's going to be on the defense. So I'm going to take the Dolphins at home. There's no fans in attendance, but teams from cold weather areas. I guess Kansas City might be considered a cold weather area. I mean, it looks pretty frigid there in December. When they come down to Miami and they play in the humidity of Florida, they usually struggle. So I'm going to bank on that here. Cardinals and Giants, I have really no skin in this game other than it'll just be interesting to see Colt McCoy play again after getting the win and into the playoff race with the lead in the NFC East, I believe. They're the current leaders of this division. But Kyler Murray needs to figure out how to stop turning the ball over, and this offense with Cliff Kingsbury has really sputtered in recent weeks, and it's really hurting my fantasy football teams. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals to rebound here against the Giants. Next, we have the Vikings and the Bucks, and man, I really want to pick the Buccaneers, but I'm going to pick the Vikings to win this one for two reasons. Number one, Mike Zimmer's defense is getting better. It's I believe it was top 10 in DVOA last I checked. So it's night and day compared to the first few weeks of the season and right now. Cam Dantzler had a good game. Um, it's been an improvement despite not having the integral pieces that they lost at the beginning of the season. Also, an interesting piece of news was Mike Evans showed up on the injury report today as a did not practice, I believe, or a limited practice, and his availability is in question for this Sunday's game. So that would leave you with Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller and Antonio Brown, which I think the Vikings would be able to handle. The question is going to be the run defense, because Ronald Jones is one of the top running backs in the league statistically this year. So that is cause for concern. But if there's a defensive coordinator with a ragtag group of people that can make Tom Brady's life miserable enough where this offense sputters, this Mike Zimmer would be it. So I'm going to go for broke and say that the Vikings, Mike Zimmer, Kirk Cousins will prove me wrong for the first time this season, because remember, they only have one win over a team with a winning record so far, and that was Green Bay after the bye week. We've lost to Seattle, we've lost to Tennessee, and our wins are over really bad teams, just, Chicago, Detroit, Jacksonville, Carolina, all losing records. So this would be a statement game. This would tell us whether or not this team is a playoff team, and if it is, then they should win this game. Moving on to the Broncos and the Panthers, the Christian McCaffrey news is unfortunate, but I still think the Panthers have the better team, and they should pull this one out. Titans and Jaguars. I like the Titans to bounce back this week against a team that really should be a trap game for them, but I think that they've experienced enough adversity in the past month that they're going to get their shit together. Mike Vrabel is going to respond against this Jacksonville team that does play really scrappy, and it will fight to the very end, but I don't anticipate the Titans having another setback like they did last week. Colts and Raiders. Speaking of, enigmas in the NFL right now, the Raiders are able to go toe-to-toe 2 times with the Kansas City Chiefs in one season, and they almost lose to the New York Jets. Weird. And if it wasn't for a blown cover 0 call on defense, they would have lost that game. So for those reasons, I'm going to go Colts. Vegas seems to like the pick. It's Colts -3 right now, I think. I think the Colts are favored by 3. So, yeah. Jets and Seahawks. Boy, if there was ever a time to pick the Jets' first win of the season, it feels like it could be this one, because the Seahawks defense is bad. The problem is that the Jets' offense isn't good enough, and there's really just no cure for that. So if the Jets' defense, a week removed from Greg Williams, now that he's been fired, plays up to the same caliber that they did against the Raiders, they could very well win this game very easily. I'm just very hesitant to pick the New York Jets to win their first football game of the season for a number of reasons. One, Adam Gase is still around, and I understand he's going to be for until the end of the season, but still, it's hard to pick, for Adam Gase and against Pete Carroll in this situation. It's also hard to pick against Russell Wilson. That's option number 2 that's really keeping me from doing it. So, long story short, Seahawks win. Next, we have the Packers and the Lions. The Packers are really just kind of coasting right now, I guess, for lack of a better term, and the Lions are treading water. It's still in the hunt at 5-7, miraculously enough. I've already got the Bears winning over here. I think the Lions winning also over here would just cause too much chaos. There's a limit of chaos that I'm willing to accept. So I'm going to go with the Packers there. The Saints and the Eagles. Woo. The Saints and the Eagles. I don't think it mattered what quarterback plays in this game, because the story is going to be Jalen Hurts versus Taysom Hill. And I don't think the Eagles' defense is good enough to contain anything that the Saints do on offense. The offense is just too creative with their play calling and their schemes. And Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas is finally looking like he's back into his normal self after his return game yesterday to dominance. So I think there's just too much on the offense that the Saints can do against an Eagles defense that is not great at all. They really need some defensive help coming up in this offseason, especially the draft. I'm going with the Saints over the Eagles, and the Eagles continue their losing ways without Carson Wentz. Next, we have the Falcons and the Chargers. I think the Chargers will bounce back after that embarrassing loss to the Patriots. I expect this one to probably be a shootout, and the Chargers can win as long as they don't, gum up the end of the game, like in the final closing minutes, or they don't find themselves in a position where game management is crucial, because that will cause them to lose. But in a shootout, I think the Chargers win this one. Next, we have the Washington football team, the 49ers. I think they expelled a lot of energy beating Pittsburgh, so that's going to, be a cause for concern coming up. There's also the question of Antonio Gibson's health status. But I think that the Washington football team has earned themselves enough goodwill for me to pick them 2 weeks in a row, and I'm going to do just that. They are also in the playoff hunt at 5-7. Next, we have the Steelers and the Bills on Sunday night. I picked against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. That was only the second time I've done it this season. The first time was an ill-advised pick for the Bengals against them as a trap game. The Washington football team I didn't believe was a trap game, but I believed it was more of a possibility because of how good the pass secondary has been. Having said that, I think the Bills' defense is probably more exploitable than the secondary that they just played in Washington. But I think Josh Allen is just playing out of his mind this season, and the fact that the Steelers' schedule has been so mucked up this year, I don't know how much energy they have left to get through this final push of the season. So I'm going to pick an upset in this one. Is it an upset? Yeah, it has to be an upset. I'm going to go with the Bills for Sunday night. And that leaves us with the Browns and the Ravens on Monday Night Football. I don't know, because in week 1, the Ravens totally trashed this Browns team, but it's different now. Like, the whole thing is flipped upside down. The tables have turned. The Ravens are treading water, and the Browns look like a dominant team on the way to their first winning season in 13 years. How can you pick against recency bias in this situation where Kevin Stefanski has this offense running on all cylinders, doing what it needs to do to be dominant? I mean, they just blew out a Tennessee Titans team that is a legitimate playoff team. The Ravens, on the other hand, are just struggling to maintain an identity with all of the COVID and injury situations that they face. And the fact that they missed Marshall Yanda is one of the bigger untold storylines of the 2020 season for the Baltimore Ravens outside of Baltimore. So having considered all that, I'm going to go with the hot hand in this one. And I'm going to pick the Browns to win on Monday night and secure a 10-win season. That's going to do it for the Week 14 picks. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.